Hello, long time no see. Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while. I have a good reason for that. I basically moved from London to New York, and that was hell. It was very stressful, it was exhausting, it was expensive. I had lived there for 8 years, so I had accumulated so much stuff, including a cat. So I had to move everything back to New York. And I am so happy here. I'm so happy to be back. I literally feel like a new woman, so refreshed, so happy, and excited for what the future holds. I finally feel ready to get back into my channel and to make videos, and I have a few lined up for you guys, but I just wanted to start out with this video that I promised back in January, which is the video about all of the artwork that I saw and enjoyed and loved when I was in Brazil. So if you saw my last video, it was basically like a travel vlog where I showed you the 2 weeks that I spent in Brazil. The first week was in Rio de Janeiro, and the second week was in Salvador. So that video was just kind of general, but this one's going to focus on the artwork. And I think Brazil has such an amazing culture, an amazing history, and I'm super excited to talk about art in Brazil with you guys. I only went to 2 museums when I was there because obviously I did other things. I went to the beach, I went clubbing, I went out to eat and stuff like that. So I only had time to go to 2 museums, but I really loved both of them. So the first museum we saw was in Bahia in Salvador, the city that we visited for our second week there. This museum was called the Museum of Modern Art of Bahia, or in Portuguese, Museu de Arte Moderna de Bahia. It's a beautiful museum that overlooks the water. It's in this really old sort of colonial era building, and I think it was founded in the 1960s, but the building itself is from the 16th century. And they had this super interesting exhibition that combined theater and fine art. And I found it super fascinating. I learned so much. It was all about this radical theater group formed in the 1960s in Brazil. And that theater group is called Vila Velha. The title of the exhibition was Vila Velha por Exemplo, which means Vila Velha, for example. And it was meant to be a celebration of the 60 years of that theater's history. They were a really important performing arts center in Salvador, in Brazil at the time. During that time in the 1960s in Brazil, there was a huge countercultural movement that was called Tropicalia, which was basically a cultural opposition to the military dictatorship in Brazil, which was from 1964 to 1985. And a lot of university students wanted to resist the militarization of the country. And at first, Vila Velha was more of an informal theater company. They didn't really have a permanent home, but it was just really passionate students that wanted to put on theater shows, they wanted to put on plays, and they wanted to express stories that could sort of resist against the military dictatorship at the time. However, in the 1960s, so 1964, they ended up having a permanent building constructed for them. I believe it was funded by the local government. So yeah, that's the history of the theater. I'm no expert, but that's everything that I sort of researched and picked up. I really love this show. I have to say, when I first walked into the museum, I was a bit confused, I'll say, because I'm so used to like the formulaic museum show where it's like paintings or sculptures, but this show kind of put theater within a fine art context, which I really appreciated. It was super cool to just see the costumes and the objects and the artifacts, and they had video clips of certain productions playing throughout the space. And the space itself was really cool because it wasn't very big, but they did a really great job of like making it seem bigger through partitioning the spaces, through doing these sort of installations within the space. So it kind of felt like the room itself was divided into like 10 or 12 different rooms. And I love seeing these theater artifacts alongside paintings. So I love seeing the arts right next to each other and blended together. It wasn't like a separation of like the paintings are here and the theater objects and artifacts are here and then the sculptures are here. Everything blended together. It really made me realize the importance of all of the arts existing within the same ecosystem, like no silos or walls between them. Like painting was next to theater, was next to sculpture, was next to video. So I really appreciated that, and I really thought it was an excellent exhibition, and I enjoyed it a lot. I also want to add that there definitely was an element of music. I couldn't really film it properly, but there was music playing, there was sounds playing throughout the exhibition hall. And something else they mentioned in just the different text throughout the exhibition was the relationship between music and art and theater at the time. Some of the first shows that Vila Velha actually put on were featuring some of Brazil's most iconic musicians and artists. For example, Gilberto Gil, Gal Costa, Caetano Veloso, three very important figures in Brazilian music history. The exhibition ended with a sort of wall of news clippings from Brazil, which was great because it made me realize and just understand the historical context of Vila Velha and the fact that artists were always working within historical context, and it's important to acknowledge that. We are on our way to the art museum now. We're taking the Escadaria Celeron, beautiful, colorful steps. It's about a 15-minute walk, and we're excited to see some modern art. Yes. See you soon. Yay, it's open. Yay, we did it. All right, so now I'll show you the second art museum we went to when we went to Brazil. By we, I meant my sister and I, back in January. So this museum was in Rio de Janeiro. And we had a bit of trouble actually getting to the museum because the first time we went, it was actually closed and it said nothing about it on their website. So we actually tried again when we came back to Rio to take our flights back to Europe and to North America. I think it does kind of look like me. Uncanny, you know. Well, if it looks like me, it looks like you. Oh yeah. This is like what? In this picture. Well, it's called The Angels, so. I see. The exhibition was called A History of Brazilian Art, and it basically traced Brazilian art history throughout the last, I would say, 100 years. And it was held on the occasion of the G20 summit, which is that big gathering of 20 world leaders. This year it was actually hosted in Rio at this museum, so they put together this exhibition as a sort of maybe cultural propaganda tool to show the world leaders the history of Brazilian art. Maybe I'm being a bit cynical, but they wanted to show world leaders the genesis and the history of Brazilian art, specifically through painting and sculpture. And I love this exhibition. I feel like I learned so much about Brazilian art history as well as the visual language that artists use in their work. I noticed the work was very colorful. And I think that has a lot to do with just the landscape of Brazil itself. It's very sunny, it's very green, there's lots of different plants and animals. So it's really interesting to me how a country's culture and landscape kind of end up in the artwork and how the artwork reflects the visual landscape of the country itself. I also loved how there was representation of abstract painting in this exhibition. If you're ever interested in this, I highly recommend looking into the history of Brazilian modernism and abstraction. It's a really interesting history, so I'm glad that was represented in the exhibition as well. But I will say I really loved learning about this art history and really seeing the diversity and range of Brazilian artists' work. There was photography, there was painting, there was sculpture, there was installation. And it was great to learn about new artists because I feel like a lot of artists are kind of left out of the canon if they're not European or American. So I'm going to put a link to this show in the description so you can look into the different artists in the show. I tried to label as best as I could, but I didn't catch all the labels, so please forgive me if I don't include a label for an artwork. Just check out the link in my description. This was actually one of our last days in Brazil, so it was a great way to end the trip, a wonderful learning experience, and I sorely miss Brazil still, even to this day. I'm speaking to you on September 20th now. So that concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this inspires you to learn more about art history in Brazil, to explore different Brazilian artists, and to incorporate museum visits into your travels and vacations. It can feel kind of like a detour. Maybe it's not as fun and sexy as going out for drinks, going out clubbing, but it is a cool way to learn about the place that you're visiting. I found that these museum trips allowed us to breathe and just take in the culture in a way that felt really natural. A lot of people around us were locals who were also visiting the museum. I really want to make more videos like this where I just go around and show you artwork, especially now that I'm in New York. I hope to do that soon. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.